it's time for Sarah Grant. We'll shift the focus of this forum from rural farmers markets to urban farmers markets. Sarah Grant, co-founder of the NMFMA, will be hosting this forum, and everyone is welcome to stay and partake and listen, but she'll be shifting the focus slightly. So Sarah, I pass it off to your more than capable and loving heart.
Thanks, Christina. You did a great job. I've been here for most of it and have listened to what everybody has to say. And I did hear the beginning questions about, well, how do you decide if your market is rural or urban? And I'm glad to see that a lot of people who can't make the call one way or another are just showing up for both. It is a testimony to the dedication of our group that they're willing to listen and participate in discussions about farmers markets, which with most of the group are our first true loves. And, as people who like to eat and eat well, there's no place like the market unless you happen to have a great garden in your backyard. But even some of those people, like both Pauline and Janet, who have great gardens of their own, still want to be involved with their local market. And I really appreciate that about market managers. Not only are you eating well at home, but you want to spread it around to everybody else, because the vibe at farmers market is one of the best ever. That's the thing that I always say about people in markets is once you've gotten them there a few times, then they begin to feel what it feels like to be there. You can't even really explain, but you just keep coming back. And that's what we need at farmers markets, is people who just keep coming back. So I'm noticing that a few people from the more obviously urban areas like Albuquerque are beginning to show up. And let's just continue the conversation. If there's anything specific that either Danielle or Alaska would like to offer, we'd be happy to hear from you. One of the things that Christina mentioned at the beginning of her rural markets was the whole issue of transportation. And I'm wondering whether you guys in Albuquerque have come up with some fun or interesting ways to deal with, especially alternative transportation, given that you guys both have parking issues. And as someone who has the incredible good fortune of getting to bike to farmers market, I wonder if you're offering any kind of incentive to any customer to take alternative transportation so that you have less of a parking crunch. And the other thing I'm wondering about is if anybody has ever considered either wagons to take product to your car or valet parking. So just pitch in if you've got something to say.
We've tried the wagons. We had 2 metal wagons that never had a great turning radius. I think if we did them again, I would get the collapsible kind of fabric wagons like you see at like Sam's Club. But our problem with the wagons is that they went to the parking lot and then never came back. And so we've toyed around with the idea of like taking someone's driver's license, so like something that, or a shoe or something, so that they had to bring it back. But we haven't done it in a couple of years.
Go ahead, Alaska.
Sorry, I was looking for my little hand raising button, but I didn't see it. The Rail Yards Market in Albuquerque operates on Sundays, so bus transportation has been difficult for a lot of our customers. We have worked with the city to reach out to the Sun Van, and we've worked out promotional partnerships with them in the past, where the Sun Van program can actually go to eligible citizens' homes, especially like disabled customers and things like that, and they can actually pick them up and take them to the market. Both the downtown and the rail yards are close to bus stops, but unfortunately, the rail yards is on Sunday, so a lot of bus routes aren't going on that day. So we have tried to reach out to the city to work out some other transportation options for especially vulnerable customers, and that's worked pretty well. I also put some info about the bike valet, which I think Liz or Danielle could speak to more.
Yeah, I'm Danielle here with the Downtown Growers Market. We offer a bike valet, which is has been a volunteer-based program through the Reynolds Neighborhood Association, which is the neighborhood right by one of the neighborhoods right by the market. So they organize that and kind of organize their own volunteers as well. And so on Saturdays, they will hold customers' bikes for them while they shop, so they don't have to walk around the park with the bike in their hand. Yeah, we're right on a bus line. Actually, one of the streets that goes right by the park is a bus line, so that's a plus and a negative to some degree, just because parking around our market is always tricky due to the nature of where the park is located and the streets surrounding us. We don't really have designated parking lot. There are lots nearby that let us use their space. But we do encourage people to walk, bike, bus if they can, just because it does alleviate some of the parking during the market. But we do also have on our website a spot that's just all about how to get to the market. It also lists nearby parking ramps and lots and all that type of stuff for folks, lets people know if they need to pay to be there or not. We definitely struggle with folks kind of just not paying attention to parking, vendors as well. Sometimes the city parking department does operate on Saturdays, so sometimes folks do get ticketed if they're in a spot that says they shouldn't be parking there and they're parking there. There's not really much we can do about that, but yeah, I guess those are the things that we offer to folks as far as getting to the market with parking and things like that.
Well, and I wonder sometimes whether there can be any kind of incentive. Like if you carpool to the farmer's market and can prove it, we'll give you this. Or if any of the local bike shops, which, you know, have done a pretty booming business since COVID, would be willing to pony up some amount of sponsorship that then you could give market bucks or something to people who come by bike. You know how I'm always trying to get the city of Albuquerque to do something for your markets, just in terms of, yeah, they would prefer to see more people biking and less people parking, just in terms of as a general rule. So I wonder if they've got anything going that encourages people to use other than their cars to get in and out of the city generally, and specifically for the for Saturday, because we all know that you know, bringing people downtown on either Saturday or Sunday is a benefit to the city. And again, all of my great ideas about how the city should be participating, behaving, and supporting you guys just doesn't ever seem to be quite the case. I guess they think they have bigger fish to fry. Little do they know the benefits of their markets. Although I did hear you say the other day, Danielle, that the market, I mean, that the city really does participate with you, and as a rule is an ally.
Yeah, I mean, largely overall. Also, I think just for this year, those are just things that are not going to be a huge priority. Unfortunately, we just like being able to offer the market with all of the restrictions and regulations we're having to comply with is going to be more than enough for us to handle. I think your ideas are fantastic though, Sarah. It'd be great to try to work something like that out. It would just, again, be another thing for us to track, to try to figure out how to figure all of that out. But hopefully in the coming seasons, when we're not so tied with COVID stuff, we can explore those types of ideas, because yeah, it'd be great. I mean, the other thing is just also, it's just that Albuquerque is very much like an auto town. A lot of people drive, they like to drive, and it's not the most bike friendly city in the world. I mean, I know they're working on it. There are some active bike organizations that work with the city. Last year they did a bike through Albuquerque, which is usually a bigger event. But the growers market was one of the locations for folks to bike. We worked with them on that. So yeah, there are some initiatives that are working on those types of things. And we do our best to partner with them when we can. But yeah, I think all fantastic. I think it's just a lot of pieces to have to move to get things to happen.
Right. And as a rule, as we know, markets tend to be a little under-resourced, which is too bad, because if we all had more employees and more time to make these kind of connections, then it would have the effect of broadening the audience of the markets, because there would just be more people aware of the market itself and what some of the issues are. So that under-resourced stuff seems kind of unfortunate. I guess it's nothing new. I just wonder, in terms of the huge benefit that just came into the state as a result of the federal COVID relief, if there's just any way of commandeering some of those funds to assist at, a very community grassroots level, which is the farmers market. So do be talking to whoever you can about, in whatever municipality you're in, about how that money is getting spent, because what better way for it to be spent than with markets? I'm looking at who we have here, just in terms of urban type markets. Oh, hi, Darcy. And when it comes to truly urban markets in New Mexico, Albuquerque certainly gets to the top of the list. Although, as Pauline was saying, Aztec is kind of a town, but issues like neighborhood associations aren't as common in a place like Aztec as they might be in a place like Albuquerque. And certainly neighborhood associations can be a great resource. I know that I think that Darcy, who's the market manager, or the sort of market manager over at Mile High, she got involved with her market through her neighborhood association. And so the neighborhood associations are an excellent liaison for the more urban markets. Also,
this is Darcy. It's been a day and a half, and I had to step away for a minute. I had my hand up. Did you call on me by any chance?
I'd love to hear what you have to say, Darcy.
Okay, so what I did, this is about parking, and I'm in a park, so I have a lot of parking on the edge of the market, but I arranged to have my vendors park elsewhere. So I went to a business that's closed on Saturdays and said, do you mind if we do this? And they said, help yourself. And that opened up more space for more people to come in and customers to come in. And also, while I'm thinking about this, I get a lot of support through my neighborhood association, and actually a coalition of neighborhoods, from my county commissioner. And I get a lot of money from my county commissioner, and from and the county generally. Our county, Bernalillo, has a program that provides funding for neighborhoods to do projects. And mine my neighborhood association designated the market as one of its primary things that it supports.
And that's Bernalillo County, is that right, Darcy?
Sorry about that. I'm having some problems, technical problems that are all operator error.
Yeah, I totally understand.
Yes, it is Bernalillo County, but it is well worth checking with your county commissioners to see if they have pockets of money to be spent on projects, particularly things that involve food and local farming and all those kinds of things.
Yeah, and I would think that that would be especially true given the COVID relief money that counties may find themselves, at least some of them, with a few extra funds. And what better way to allocate them than towards their markets? And you know, the thing is about counties, and I don't know that much about them, but they're used to, you know, big amounts of money, like, hey, we got to give $75,000 to this group over there, or we got to give $150,000 to this group over there. You're not going to be asking for that much.
No.
And this applies totally across the state. It's not just Bernalillo County. It's good to find out what's happening at the county level and to see if by some chance there isn't someone on your county commission or somebody who works for someone on your county commission who's a farmer's market freak. Because as we all know, if you're a farmer's market enthusiast, all you really want to do is figure out how to support your local farmer's market. So I would say if people have the time, this might be an excellent opportunity to check in on what's happening at the county level. And Bonnie, what do you do in San Juan County? Are you getting any support from San Juan? We could have lost Bonnie here. Or Pauline, either one of you guys in San Juan County. Do you know if you get any support?
You know, I felt like in Aztec, we'd never got any support. And then the sort of city government kind of changed over. And then oil and gas was kind of going downwards. So everybody became interested in what was the next big thing. So then everyone sort of got interested in farmers markets. And actually with the COVID funds, the city librarian, which I'm on the library board, she came to the market and she said, nobody's applying for this money. You know, apply, tell your farmers to apply for it. The market should apply for it. So we applied for money for the market and got it very easily. So they gave us $5,000, and then midway through they were like, nobody's applying for this money. We have to give it out or return it. And so they gave everybody another $5,000, but it was all on reimbursement. So I tried to buy $10,000 worth of stuff, but I didn't quite make that amount of money. I mean, I couldn't spend it all. So I spent what I could, but it was a really good opportunity to get some of that money that they're trying to inject into the community.
Bernalillo County will allow us to use it to pay for advertising and for a stipend. I mean, it's a tiny stipend, believe me, but for the market manager. So those are some other places you can spend the money if you've got it.
Okay, I hope everybody is taking note of this because I think that, as Pauline was saying, there are going to be counties that potentially are finding themselves with money and they don't necessarily have the time or the inclination to do outreach, but they have the money. And so if you can contact them right about now and say, wow, we can think of some really great, very community, very grassroots methods to get this money circulating out in the community with a multiplier effect of 1.8, you know, lay it on thick. I think you might find that this summer especially would be an excellent opportunity to figure out some ways that you can not only connect your market more effectively within your community and within the county, but also to get some stuff that will really benefit your market. And it also puts you on the radar of the county commission, who goes, wow, those farmers market folks, they are doing some really good work that I might not have even been aware of because I was paying too much attention to some of this other stuff. It also is, can potentially go into any kind of community garden type efforts that may be part of your communities. Just any way that you guys can build coalitions of, hey, we're all about healthy food for New Mexico, I think could be serving the counties as well as serving yourselves.
When I
Catherine?
applied for it, I put together a letter that we had created a mission statement for the market that included 4 points that were really going to tickle their ivories. And one was community building, 2 was getting food, fresh food to low income people, 3, making access, better access for fresh foods, and 4, supporting local businesses, including, and then I named the kinds of businesses that we were supporting by providing them with an outlet. And that catches their attention because it hits on several things that they are interested in being able to say, and we supported local business with this grant, stuff like that. But you have to do the work for them.
Yes. Did everybody hear that? You kind of have to do the work for them, but they're just sitting there going, what are we going to do? And you guys are market managers, which means that's the kind of stuff you do, is the work for them. Especially if it's going to have a cash and payout and potentially benefit to your market. I see, Catherine, that you've got your hand up. I also see from Alaska that she would like a roll call of all the markets that are here in the chat. As a non-techie type, I wouldn't have a clue how to do that, so anybody who's here as a market manager, if you could just put your name and your market in the chat, then at least Alaska will have sort of an idea. And Alaska, if you have a way on Zoom to get a better roll call than that, I'm all ears. Okay.
Shall I speak? This is Catherine.
Yes, go ahead, Catherine.
I wanted to go back to the transportation question and share an idea that I've wanted to work on for some years and just haven't been able to get the time to do it. Back in the old days when I worked at Albuquerque Little Theater, we would have 1 day a week or one performance a week that would be open especially for seniors. We used to call it the blue hair audience. And they would come in buses, small and large. Some of those buses had no more than 10 passengers, but they would come from the community centers, the senior centers, and some of them would even, it was enough people to fill up a bus, a regular city bus, and they would charter. My thinking was that why not contact the senior centers and start working with them with sort of bringing one of those vans with their senior center people to the market. we have such a high senior at Nob Hill. We have such a high senior customer base that I thought that would really help us. But that was just an idea that I wanted to throw out because I've been thinking about that for some time, thinking that might work. That's all.
Thank you. We talked about that a little bit in the previous, in the rural farmers markets. And it's another one of those areas that seems to require diligence on the part of whoever's trying to make it happen. I know that in Santa Fe, there is a senior ride service, which doesn't even involve a bunch of seniors all at once, but it is a way that potentially seniors could get a ride at farmers markets. So there's definitely potential there. It's just another one of those things that somebody has to jump in and start working on. And
well, we certainly have that in Albuquerque. We have senior transportation and disabled transportation. That, however, has been very difficult for our customers. You have to book a ride, 24 to 48 hours in advance, and then you have to call them back because they don't hang out while the customer shops. I was thinking that the senior centers and the community centers would be better. They would, for instance, the YMCA does field trips for members of the Y. And it's mostly, the field trips are almost always filled with seniors. And they go off to places, and the market might be one of those places. And actually, I've talked to them at the Y, and they would be interested in setting up something like that. So every Thursday, a van would leave the Y and head for the market for a couple of hours or an hour.
Yeah,
It's a thought, but it does require some reaching out to those centers.
Yeah, well, and you're in a good situation because your market happens on a weekday. The other thing that can be an issue is sometimes on the weekend, those services aren't as active.
Right.
And I think my experience with them, and pretty soon I'll be able to call those vans up myself, is that some people, the people who've kind of gotten the hang of it, probably use them a lot. And then there's a fair amount of people who just aren't that aware that it's a possibility, or if they are, they haven't thought about the farmers market as a potential destination.
Right. They think of the doctor's appointments.
Right. Yeah. And so again, that would take some sort of legwork. The other thing, though, in an urban area, and I know that the New Mexico Farmers Marketing Association has a lot of organizations in Albuquerque that we have partnered with, largely around the Double Up Food Box program, because in a place like Albuquerque, there's a lot of groups, whether they're food pantries or whether they're service organizations that are specifically looking out to serve underserved or low-income populations. And, to somehow get the word out to them that bringing their people to farmers markets is something that we are generally trying to do. Denise, you should help me out with this a little bit if you can.
Yep, I had to look for my unmute button there. Yeah, so I think I heard most of what you were saying there, Sarah. You were talking about organizations in the Albuquerque area that are Double Up Food Box partners. Was there a specific, I'm not sure what.
Well, we're just trying to think about how some of their constituency could leverage some of what the city has to offer in terms of transportation services to actually get to the farmers markets. but that a lot of people aren't necessarily thinking about that as a destination, and that some of our partners might be able to be disseminators of that kind of information. Again, for weekday markets, not so much for weekend markets.
Yeah, well, we even tried working with, we thought Catholic Charities in Albuquerque was going to be a real transportation partner. They were very enthusiastic. This was several years ago, and they were really enthusiastic about wanting to, not only provide, I think they continue to provide outreach to their network, the people who come in, the seniors who come in, but they were also, because they do have a van or a bus or whatever, and they were also going to try to take them. And then they just like backed out of that. They just decided, nope, that's actually more than we can chew. And like we had money reserved to pay them to do that. So that, that would be like a best case scenario where an organization actually has the physical resources that they might be able to help with transportation. But yeah, we tried to just, I don't have the list of all the Albuquerque Double Up partners in front of me. I know like the South Broadway Cultural Center and the First Choice Health Clinics, so in terms of outreach, we're always working with those partners to remind them to remind their networks. But I'm not sure if I'm not sure if I'm really answering a question.
No, I'd say you are. And, this is sort of a brainstorming session. And the issue of transportation has always been a really big one. I wonder about organizations who really could use some corporate goodwill like Uber, and what incredible good work they could do if they said, yeah, on Saturdays, we're gonna come up with a big old donation to pay our drivers to take people to farmers market, because that contributes to the community health, and it contributes to our public image, which is really taking a beating on a lot of levels. I don't know if that's an idea, or if anybody has any kind of connection with any of those larger organizations, but certainly they've got a lot of cars on the road, and their drivers are hopelessly underpaid. It's not like we wouldn't pay their drivers, but it would be a good publicity stunt for them. Win-win all around. Who knows?
It's a great idea, and there might be ways to, even if Uber somehow, I don't feel like Uber itself is going to be the socially responsible organization that will say, oh yeah, we'll underwrite that, just from my
Experience.
My thoughts about Uber. But we might be able to find another organization that does want the good PR, and so they pay Uber to do that. And so do you think that would help? Do you think the customers who are like that we could, then we'd have to promote it via like your social media or whatever, and say, I'm making this up, but like something like, the first 20 customers per day, or the first 20 calls that Uber gets each Saturday in July will be covered by, will be a free ride. There probably would have to be some X miles or something, but do you think that would work as like if you put that out? How do you think customers would feel about that? Or would it be the customers who already come to market, that it wouldn't really help the customers in need because maybe they're not looking at social media? I don't know.
Well, and I'm also thinking of Pauline's unspent COVID relief funds last year, and just thinking, yeah, the county is trying to support small business. The county is trying to support getting people good food, and what better way than to pay for some Uber drivers to drive people to the farmers market? I mean, obviously, we got to be thinking as creatively as we can. Sometimes, and it's not often the case, but sometimes there are cases where counties, and COVID has been one of them, where they actually really don't know what to do with all their money. And so that's where, the markets could potentially provide a lot of relief for this situation at the same time that they were really serving the market. Does anybody have any further brainstorming to build on that?
Well, yeah, and there's a couple comments. I mean, we can certainly, anybody could jump in, but I do see Syra has put in a couple of things. One about Uber requires tech skills like an iPhone and app. Yes, that's true, which could be hard on seniors. Yep, that's true. We still have taxis, which might be more familiar to seniors. That would be good. And then she also said the city of Albuquerque has a transit equity council. Ooh, I like the sound of that. And Syra, I hope I said pronounced your name okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, well, so City of Albuquerque Transit Equity Council might be something that that people could look into. I also know, at least with the downtown market, that you guys have that huge housing complex right next door to you. And the reason that I know about it is I have a friend who lives in it. And she said, yeah, my view on Saturday is of the farmer's market. And she would have probably driven 5 to 15 miles to get to farmer's market, but she's pretty excited that she can just walk downstairs and get over to the market. And do you guys target that particular housing area at all in terms of your outreach?
We have in the past. We will definitely try to do that again this year. Everything's just been so thrown out of the loop with the pandemic. I mean, yeah, I mean, in the past, we, would print a bunch of flyers and go around places nearby the market, talk with different folks. We're not doing that this year, just again, because of the pandemic. We will be printing some flyers specific to the food assistance programs we offer, which we're gonna do our best to get out to folks in ways that we can. Kind of just outlines like everything instead of like just double up food bucks. So, but yeah, I mean, yeah, we do our best to do that kind of stuff. Working with those folks has been up and down just because a lot of the people that live there park along the park, and we've been trying to get them to not do that for years. And so communication there has kind of been off and on. So yeah.
I understand. Amanda, did you have your hand up?
Oh, wrong one.
No, ma'am, I did not.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not all that good at keeping track of people's hands. Does anybody have anything that they'd like to add to this? If not, okay, go ahead, Danielle.
I guess I'd say that these, like, I think all these ideas are super fantastic. It would be cool if like the partnering entities, I guess, I'm just thinking as far as capacity, like at our market, we have people come to us with different things and different ideas like this type of thing, or even just, I mean, we've had other organizations come to us with different food access ideas. And it's like, if we have to add one more token in and one more thing to track, and, so it just kind of, like these types of initiatives are, at least for our market, something that we would love to put effort into, but we kind of need the folks on the other end to maybe meet us halfway or even a little more, so that it can be something that we can share with our customers, because we do have that platform available as far as social media followers, newsletters, all that type of stuff. And I'm more than happy to spread the word on all that type of thing. But as far as like actually putting together a lot of the organizing around it and then the outreach, it just kind of adds another level of something to our long list of things that we're trying to support. And so again, like I think the brainstorming session is great, and it's really cool to try to think of all these different things. But if initiatives are put into place on NMFMA's end and a larger scale type thing, that's kind of what comes to mind for me when it's like, let's add another thing to the market. So yeah.
Yep. Well, and it is true that as a rule, and even doubly so with COVID, that market managers have always got more than enough to do. And it certainly is one of the purposes of the New Mexico Farmers Marketing Association to try to help wherever we can. But we find ourselves often in this situation where we have more than enough to do. And so the thing that I've noticed just organizationally is if somebody comes to you with a good idea, you know, you can say as nicely as possible, hey, good ideas grow on, or literally they grow on trees. What we need is someone who can actually execute. And so if you've got some bright ideas about how your great idea can actually be executed, then we will get out of the way or assist you in terms of anything we can do to say rah, rah, or yes, yes, but we can't do it ourselves because we're barely getting enough sleep as it is. That oftentimes that kind of license being given to some of these good ideas will get someone to actually step up and do it. The other thing that is always a huge issue that when I retire, I'm going to try to put a lot of more time and energy into is cloning market managers. Because for the longest time, we've realized that if we could just figure out how to do that, many, many, many of our problems would be solved. So anybody who wants to work with me on that project, I'm totally open to it. It may in the next 20 to 50 years become more possible than any of us would ever want to imagine. But the point is that market managers, as a rule, and you guys all know from being who you are and from knowing each other, are such great, like, hey, let's get in there and do this. And so that kind of energy is what fuels the New Mexico Farmers Marketing Association, and I really am grateful for everybody for that. Is there, okay, lab scientists, let's get on it, Alaska.
Yeah, and I just want to add, you know, while I hear what you were saying, Danielle, that, you know, the markets just don't have the individual capacity to chase down all the good ideas. And in some ways we don't either, but in other ways we do try. And so if you do have what seems like a good idea, or somebody has come to you, definitely, and then you just think, well, we don't have the capacity, definitely let us know, because particularly, and I don't mean this at the expense of the markets who are on this call that are not in Albuquerque, but since this is about urban markets, I think we can talk about urban a little bit. When we can leverage, so if there's a good idea that's going to serve, you know, like 8 markets in the Albuquerque area, that's something we'll be like thinking, let's try to find some time to do that, because there's 8 markets that can benefit. So it's not that we don't want to, and then if we find that works, maybe there is a way then that it could be replicated for TRC or somewhere else. So yeah, don't write us off if anybody approaches you with a good idea, but it is challenging. We have similar challenges, I think, in that capacity area, but we're willing to try.
Yeah, and it is true that, you know, we have more employees than we used to. And sometimes they'll have a little teeny hiatus where it's like, oh, I'm trying to figure out what I need to be doing next. And so it is possible that they could fill in if somebody comes up with an idea. And it's really can be discouraging when you hear all these great ideas, and I mean, ideas, as I said, they grow on trees, but there will be ideas that may come along that you go, now that is something I think we could make happen in Albuquerque, that if you were to contact us about it, we might be able to provide just a little push over. Because here's the other thing that I found as a result of being kind of chronically overworked, is, you know, when we have too many things to do, we get the idea that a big job, or even a not so big job, is going to take so many hours. But if we actually had the time to do it, we might find that it really takes less than 20. But we don't have 20. So it doesn't matter if it takes 20 or 200. We don't have the 20. But if it's something that takes, 20 hours or less, it might be something that we'll be able to help with. And in my case, I found that some of the things that I thought were going to take, 200 hours, when I actually did them, they took 3, which is like pretty amazing. But if you always are working with that, I got a few too many things to do. It's hard to know how much time something's going to take because you don't have it.
Well, yeah, and I will say too that like some of the things that have been most successful for us are folks who come to us with ideas that can fit into the programs we're already utilizing. So for example, we had a school reach out to us in the South Valley, and they were wanting to get, it's a middle school, and they were wanting to get some of their students and parents to access local foods more. And so I explained to them the food access programs we have, but then what they're going to do is purchase market tokens to give to some of their students and families to then come to the market and use those tokens. So, that's one way where it's like, sure, that, that we can partner with you to get more access and more information out to folks in different areas of the community. And that doesn't require a ton of work on our end, where it's like, you let us know how much, we bag them up, you pay for them, we give them to you. Those folks can use those tokens designated to be used at our market. Or like, for example, the bike ballet, that's like a neighborhood association that saw the need years ago of people walking around the park with their bikes, and were able to participate in that manner. We also work with like Kids Cook. And so they, what they were able to adjust last year by coming to the market and doing kind of like a live video, and then they would go back to somebody in their kitchen doing the cooking and showing kind of like back and forth, like, here's the place where you can get this produce. Here's what you can do with this produce with a recipe. And then we live streamed it on Facebook. So I guess like, ideas like that, where it can already kind of fit into things that we're doing and doesn't then just add, unless, we can find funding to do a whole nother program or something, but yeah, so even these ideas of getting folks to come to the market, like on our end, I guess I'm just, it's so hard to keep track of all the different, I don't know the senior centers, I don't know all the schools, I don't know all this stuff. So if there's if you all have that information of like, we're working with these schools to get local farmers or whatever, and we could help in some way of letting people know that list of schools you're working with, or the senior centers you're working with, or things like that. Things like that would be simple ways for us to kind of help share the information and connect the dots.
That's really helpful, Danielle, because we do have, I don't know that there were any senior centers just yet in Albuquerque, but certainly in other counties. And we do know what schools, and I understand. It makes perfect sense. Sometimes you forget, or I should say, we forget what other people don't know. And that if we let you know which schools are buying local, you can promote that. And, the same with the senior centers, and then get that cross promotional. And you're absolutely right about piggybacking is always the best way to do any kind of new activity. If it fits into a framework that's already there, that's the path of least resistance for sure. So we'll try to do a better job to get you information on schools who are purchasing, and senior centers. We could do that.
Well, and then, the New Mexico Farmers Marketing Association, especially since we've been doing the Double Up program, has partnered with a lot of organizations, and they're organizations that are really great partners, and there are organizations that are not so great partners, and you just learn over time who are the ones that are really going to step up and do what they say they're going to do, and hopefully they're going to be the ones that do more, so that you guys can do a whole lot less rather than the opposite. And, if you've got a partner who's not stepping up and doing at least half the work, if not 3/4 of it, then you just go, oh, bad partner. I guess we're just not going to keep working with them. But there's certainly no obligation to partnership with an organization who isn't pulling at least half or more of the weight. And again, it's especially useful when they're doing work that you're already participating in some way.
This is Darcy. There,
Right.
there are sort of clearinghouse agencies as well. So for instance, when I need something like all the schools, I can call APS and say, I'm looking for all the schools. Can you send me a list? I've used my city councilor the same way. I'll call him and say, I'm looking for X. Can you either provide me with that list or tell me where to go to find it? And in urban areas, very often there are departments that are given over to seniors and handicapped folk who can provide you at least an outlet for flyers and that kind of thing. And Danielle, I think that this would be a great thing to talk about at the AGMA meeting and see if we could divide up the workload and share it. There's nothing I love more than connecting people with stuff. If I could have had a job doing that, man, I would have done that. If anybody needs help with writing things like mission statements or stuff like that, I'm more than willing to help with that kind of thing. So across the whole state, I don't mind at all. I was, in my previous life, I was a lawyer and I taught legal writing and I went to law school so I would learn how to write. And I would be very happy to help anyone with that sort of stuff.
Darcy, I didn't know you're an attorney. That's very handy to know.
I'm a water
Everyone-
rights attorney who is completely retired. So
Everyone,
that was one of my segues into farmers markets, is that I did water rights across the whole state, explaining them to people.
that's great. Thanks for the offer to everyone.
Yeah, well, and as you can see, and Darcy is someone who's been part of our organization for the last, how many years, Darcy? 6, 10? Who, when she says she's going to do something, it actually happens. So do call on her if you need anything like help with the mission statement or organizational assistance. We love to be able to connect resources with resources. And that's part of our job also. So
And just to be
anybody else-
clear, I'm not offering to write grants for people, but I'll help you with language and that kind of thing, letter language and whatever. You got to write your own grants, but I'll help you with bits
Got
and
it.
pieces.
Anybody else got anything to say? We're kind of winding down here. I'm going to remind everybody who's a market manager to please vote for one of your board members. I'm also going to remind you that at 4 o'clock we have a food safety training panel, not a panel, no, a food safety training session where you can learn from Ashley Taylor, who is our food safety training specialist, about food safety training opportunities for your farmers. It never hurts for market managers to attend food safety trainings. So she'll be offering that at 4. And then we will be having our final happy hour tonight at 5. And if you haven't attended any of them, they're a good way to just connect with people who have been part of the conference. If you don't want to connect with the whole group because you're not comfortable with groups of 20 or 25 people, we can ask one of our techies to put you in a breakout room with whoever you'd like to be in the breakout room with, and you can converse almost as if you were at the conference, kind of. But it is a great opportunity, and it would be nice to see some of you there. And it seems like Denise has got something to say, so go, Denise.
Okay, I just wanted to add, in addition to Ashley being talking about food safety, Anita Adalja will be joining her and talking about food hubs and how those can also be useful to farmers. So just that addition.
And if we're not going to see you again, which I really hope is not the case, but if it's true that we're not going to see you again, please join me in thanking all of the market managers that are here for the incredible work that we can't live without. And also for thanking the tech people who have served us excellently through the entire conference, so that for the most part, we've all been able to talk and see and listen and learn. Very appreciative, Michael and Ashley.
Here,
Okay,
here, here, here.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
This has been a really very well done webinar.
Great. Glad you're enjoying it. And my clock is just about to flip to 3, and I love being early. So thanks for showing yourselves, Ashley and Michael. If you guys don't know who they are, they just showed up in the screen. You guys, it's hard to take a bow over Zoom. But yes, thank you for taking your bows, and thank you so much for holding us all together over the course of these last 4 days. I'm sure you guys are gonna crash in a major sort of way, Ashley, after your next performance, but thank you guys both for being so attentive.